3, 2, 1, and we are live. Welcome everyone to the University of Derby Library Livestream with myself and Tim. So Tim, would you like to introduce us and also introduce broadly the livestream?
Yeah, so hello, good day, and welcome. Let me begin by saying that technically, when you count down, Alex, you shouldn't count the 3, 2, 1 when you're going live because you can hear the 3, 2, 1 when you try and cut the audio, and that makes it more complicated to edit the video afterwards.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that was just a bit of feedback because today we're going to talk about feedback, about power progress. No, about powering progress.
Through feedback.
Through feedback, yes.
Yes. So, today's live stream, it's all about using feedback but in a positive way. And so first of all, we're going to talk about how you can use feedback that you've been given by lecturers, following your assignments and following the things that you submitted. And then we're going to talk a bit about how you can generate feedback for yourself. So how you can create your own feedback, because obviously your lecturers don't just can only give you feedback on what you've given to them, whereas they won't know the ins and outs of the processes that you've used and how you actually have gone about completing the assessment. They might not know how you felt, and you can properly reflect on that to give yourself some feedback. So that's going to be the main focus of today's live stream, but towards the end we will be covering in our grammar topic of the week capital letters, because it's a topic that people might feel confident with. However, sometimes you might feel, actually, I don't always know when they should be used, and so hopefully we can help you know for sure and be confident that you are applying capital letters in your work correctly. If you already know, then great, you've had it reaffirmed. If you didn't know, then you've learned something. So, that is the outline of the podcast. But before we go into today's podcast live stream, I just wanted to make a quick announcement about a new podcast series that we're working on called Being Successful as a Student. At least that's the working name of it. Essentially, we're going to be interviewing students and staff across the university to discover the different things, the different skills that make up being successful. These will be students who are successful in various things, and we'll be interviewing as many students who are interested in it to help discover what it means to be successful. So therefore, tips from being organised, the mindsets, so using feedback correctly just feed into this quite a bit, but also about skills such as organisation, developing resilience, and so on. So if you're interested in being interviewed for this, I'm just going to put a link into the chat now, and there'll be a link in the description of this live stream, of which you can use to fill that in. All you need to do is submit your student number, and from there I'll contact everyone who's done that and ask them about what they think is important to be successful as a student, and we'll arrange an interview if we decide to go ahead with interviewing you. So that's just the podcast. It's something to look forward to, and Tim has put his finger up in the air to say hi.
It's the only way. It's the only way to stop you mid-flow. So I'm playing around with my camera and I'm really confused. I've tried to flip my camera so that when I'm looking at the stream, I can see you without looking like I'm looking away on the what's it. But now I flip my camera and it's flipped the other way, or I don't know what's happening. It's like it's
all right, Tim. Flipped. You are looking the opposite direction of me currently, but that's okay.
It's not as intimate as it should be.
So when I look at you, I am looking at you. Anyways, so
I've just spent at least a minute whilst you were talking about the podcast, which actually I'm really looking forward to, trying to work it out, and I did it, and it's not done anything. That's a bit annoying, isn't it?
So yes. Hopefully, if you can fix that, then fix it. If not, then we can run with it, and we can feed back and reflect on how we can fix it for next time. But it's good thinking, though, Tim. So, now we're going to talk all about our topic of the week, which this week is using feedback positively. So we're going to discuss how you can go about using feedback, why you should use feedback, and so on. So, Tim, what are the benefits of feedback to a student?
So, the primary thing that we need to talk about really when it comes to feedback is how we actually learn. So as human beings, we constantly learn, we always learn, we never stop learning. I'm really old now, I'm 42, so I classify as nearly pension age, and I still learn every day. And the way that I learn and the way that everybody learns is through feedback and working with that feedback to understand your environment and the things that you're trying to achieve. So feedback is really, really crucial in that bigger picture of learning. So even though it's not always nice to receive feedback, it is probably one of the most useful things that we have available to learn and to better understand what we are trying to achieve. So yeah, feedback to me and this topic is really important and is something that we should talk about, because Alex, am I right in thinking that it's been the exam week
Uh,
this
it,
past few weeks?
we're in exam season right now, so we did have exams live stream last week to help with that, but the term starts next week, so it's a really good time to think about this, because you should have had feedback for your semester, the assignments you've had in the first semester, or be getting a feedback for the January assignment quite soon. And in the next few weeks, you might be getting your feedback on your exams. So
Yeah.
you can use that feedback to help power the progress that you need to improve for next semester. And so, realistically, how can students use the feedback that they've been given by lecturers, Tim?
Um, So, well, how can you use it? This is what we're going to talk about for an hour, so it's a very broad question.
Yes.
But in general, the best way to use feedback is to see it as a tool to improve. So it's about that progress. You as a person need that personal growth, and feedback is a way to develop that personal growth. So the way that you use the feedback is by looking at whether it actually matches what your expectations were going into the coursework. So one of the things that I think is really difficult for people is, um, I'll try and give an example actually. I quite frequently encounter students that go, "Oh, I failed this, and I don't know what I'm doing," and blah 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 blah, and then they end up with a 75.
That's how I
Feedback actually,
felt on some of mine.
yeah, students do that all the time, and it's actually really interesting to me, because that feedback that you get actually confirms that you're doing better than you think you are. So use it as a positive drive. You know, it's something that helps you to understand that actually you were performing at the level that you would expect to perform at, and you can take that confidence and build that confidence. I think one of the key skills you need in university, that one of the key skills you build in university, is to be more confident about yourself and more confident about the way that you act in your environment. So I would definitely say that students need to use the feedback that they receive during their time at university to build that confidence and to actually build resilience. We call it academic resilience.
Yeah.
It's about understanding, you know, the dynamics of where you are and what you are doing. Um, yeah, I think that's really positive. And also, just to highlight that once you get out of university, if you work in a very good organization and you have a good line manager, and I think I'm very lucky with the line manager I get really direct feedback. I get an understanding of what I'm doing right and wrong. That's not the case for everybody. So, this is really your time at university is a great chance to grow and to power your own personal progress.
Yes. I totally agree with your point about resilience, Tim, in terms of how it can actually give you more confidence, but also if you do get negative feedback that you need, it can help you to build resilience. So a lot of times when I've heard friends, and also I can say I'm guilty of this myself at times, when you first read negative feedback, it can hurt. Sometimes you think that lecturer just doesn't like me. I hate that lecturer. I didn't like their teaching. They clearly just don't like me and my style. But actually, if you look back at a few days later without the mindset of shock that you failed, you can use that feedback properly, because the lecturers, they never give you negative feedback because they hate you. Actually, if a lecturer gives you feedback to improve on, that's huge. That's an opportunity. You now know, if I work on this, I can be doing better. So if you are giving feedback that's negative, that's, in my opinion, better than if you're giving no feedback at all but are just giving a grade, because you now know, here's what I need to do to improve. And I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. So do look at the feedback that you've given, try to break it down into what, or summarize it into what they are saying, and try to improve on it. Later on, we're going to show some of our feedback. So I'm going to show the feedback that I got in my first year for one of my assessments, and then the feedback that I later got in my second year with the same lecturer, and how that dynamic has changed over the time because of how I acted on that feedback. But yeah, so Tim, what would you say students should do if their feedback is negative? So you discussed if it's positive and actually if it's better than what you thought it is. But what if you expected to get, let's say, a 60 and you got your results back and actually you got a 40?
So there's a number of things that you need to understand in that process, I think. First of all, we talk about this a lot with being critical as well in our previous live streams and our workshops. It's not about black and white, right? So even if the outcome of your coursework is negative and you feel like it was worse than you expected it to be, it's not about it's bad or it's good. It's about understanding why you didn't get the grade you wanted. And a lot of our courses in the University of Derby work with this marking grid, with a matrix. And a lot of the time, it's actually really easy to pinpoint why you got the grade that you wanted. That's why we use these matrices. And if you understand the matrix and you understand why you didn't meet the criteria as set out in the matrix, then that's still positive, right? So even though you failed this time, and failed is a big word, I think you can still pass quite a lot of courses with 40. But if you failed this time, you have to take that feedback seriously, because clearly you have not met the criteria set out for you to pass that particular module. So I wouldn't think of it as being negative, even if it is bad, it's bad feedback. It's something that you need to pick up on and something that you need to turn into a positive. And you need that positive energy, because if you're going for a resit, you're only technically limited to, I think it's one resit, and then you have to have extenuating circumstances after that. That resit is going to count. You have to try and actually make that feedback count. This is really weird. Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I'm being interrupted by Teams.
Okay, it's still working for me.
Yeah. So even if the feedback is mainly negative, don't see it as a negative. See it as a learning opportunity. Understand why it was negative and deal with it. One thing I will add to that is, if you really feel like it's unjust, then that's different than being negative. And at that point, you have a course of recourse through the program panel and all that sort of stuff. Contact your student rep and discuss what you think might have gone wrong. Don't be afraid of that either. I distinctly remember a piece of course. We're going to share some experiences anyway, but I'll highlight this one. I was asked to create a website in my master's degree, and I decided to show off and do it all in HTML, written by hand, not using a package like, what was it called at the time, Dreamweaver or something like that. And I hit all the criteria. I actually checked all the criteria of that assignment. I passed all of those. I thought it was actually a clever piece of design. It wasn't designed very well because I'm not a graphical designer. And at the end of it, my grade was low, very low compared to what I expected to get. I think it was under 50, which was probably my lowest grade for that year. And I went back to the lecturer and said, but I met all your criteria. He didn't agree. I happened to be at the time the program rep anyway. So I raised it at program level. And lo and behold, I got it turned around and actually received, I think it was 68 or something like that after that, because it was actually agreed that I did meet all the criteria. So you have got that opportunity as well as a student. I wouldn't recommend that you do it every time. If you notice that you're doing it for every piece of coursework, start looking at yourself as the problem. But if there's one particular piece of coursework you really disagree with, do make sure you explore that route as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know that people have gone about and done things like that in the past. I've never done it myself personally, but something I do is I would, instead of appealing it, I would go and try and speak to the lecturer to help understand it. So some lecturers and tutors are willing to meet with you to explain that and why, and help develop and explore that feedback in a bit more depth potentially.
Yeah, that should always be the first step, Alex. Go and talk to your lecturer.
Yeah. You've also got your personal academic tutors as well. So if you do want to have a meeting with those, you can try and discuss it with them and see if they're happy to talk about that as an option. But as Tim said and alluded to earlier, when you've seen feedback that's not positive, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean necessarily it's negative. It means here is how you could improve for next time. And that's, like I said earlier, that's an opportunity. Use that, seize that opportunity, work out what's gone wrong, and target how you can improve that. Whether that means that you're going to say, okay, well, if I don't know how critical analysis is, will I go along to a workshop about it? Will I watch some of the YouTube videos available on Derby Uni Library about it? How can I develop that skill? Am I going to read a book about it, and so on? And you can then see how that works over time. But it's an opportunity to say, here's your weak points, now improve them for next time. And Yeah, I think university's built a little bit like that actually, because university, I've said this a few times, but the first year it doesn't count at all towards your degree, and the second year counts as only 20%, and the third year counts as 80. And the reason for that is so you can use the feedback you've got over time to improve. So I do think that is useful. So I've got another question for you now, Tim, which is based on what a few people have said to me in the past about feedback, which is, well, the feedback that I've got for this assessment is specific for this assessment. So let's say you've got feedback on an exam and you've got no more exams. Can you still use that feedback at all? Is there any point in using that, Tim? What would you say to someone who's got that mindset?
Yeah, I've got to make my exam joke because it's exam and not exam. And we've gone over this a million times. No, that's just me being facetious, as you know. But I think every piece of assessment should be designed to elevate you and your progress in the study that you are doing. And that means that every piece of assessment is linked to every other piece of assessment as well. So let me just think of an example with the nursing students that I work with. Yeah, like in the nursing program, and the program's changed. I'll refer to the old program, but there used to be a module called Research Methods in year 2, and that module was actually foundational for the dissertation in year 3. And a lot of students didn't quite get the link between the two. It wasn't quite explicit until it was explained that that was why that module existed. So the feedback you get in that module in year 2 applies very directly to your dissertation in year 3. Very important. The other thing is that even if it didn't, you will learn a lot of lessons from that particular module that you can apply elsewhere. Otherwise the module wouldn't exist. Otherwise the module doesn't have a right to exist in your program. So if you think, for example, about a program like mathematics, and go and see the lovely video that Naomi did with Natalie Bayfield. I can't remember the name of the YouTube channel, Alex.
University of Derby Maths Society, I think. Let me just, I'll get it up and...
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, but if you're a maths student, you build up your knowledge about more complex maths theory as you go along. That's the whole point of it, right? And you might not always see why you do X and how it's relevant for Y, but you have to have a bit of faith in the fact that the program as a whole was designed to build on your knowledge of the subject area. Then the final bit I'll touch on with that is that the feedback, even if it is really specific about that particular module, is still usually about something that you can improve later on as well, right? So feedback should be part of your reflective cycle as a student. And let's say that a lecturer says that your referencing is poor, pick up on that, right? Understand why your referencing for that assignment was poor. Was it because you had bad sources? Was it because you actually didn't get the formatting of the referencing right? Whatever it was, it's something that you can work on. So yeah, absolutely, you have to build from piece to piece and from work to work. Yeah, very important. I was going to say something else, but I'll leave that for now.
Well, I'm just thinking as well, like, if you're in the third year, people might think, well, I've finished university now, I'm not going to do another degree, I don't care about what the feedback says, I'm not doing another assignment. The feedback is still there because that feedback can help you in the future. And you're not published. I don't think you ever are. Tim, something that you say a lot is every day's a learning day, and you never truly learn everything. You keep developing. So just because you finish university, you're not a finished project. Just because you're Tim Zelstra, library and what's your exact role? Basically, what is it? Library and skills manager. Library and skills manager doesn't mean that you've learned everything.
Library experience and skills manager.
Sorry, Tim. It's not the experience. But just because you've learned that doesn't mean that you are perfect. You are always developing and constantly learning. Absolutely. And so if you are finishing university and you do get feedback, do read that and take it on board, because it actually can help you out in later life and with other skills.
Yeah, so, it's this... I'm really pleased you raised that, because frankly, seeing your university degree as a product and qualifying as the end product is completely the wrong approach to being at university. And what I mean with that is your learning doesn't stop when you've become a graduate of the University of Derby. In fact, for almost all courses, I would argue that your learning starts when you've graduated as a University of Derby graduate. Because you've learned so many lessons over the 3 years or however many years it took you to do that particular course. You've learned so many lessons about how to become better and how to become a more successful, a more progressive, a more whatever sort of individual you want to be, that you are going to carry that forward. If you did your 3 years correct, you will keep learning and keep building and keep developing. And I was really guilty. My first degree, Alex knows this story quite well. I did 3 different degrees before one actually stuck as my first degree. And I saw it as a product. I just wanted to get it done. If that's your mentality, you're not going to get it done. If you don't go into that degree wanting to learn and understand better about the subject area you're studying, don't do the degree. Genuinely, just don't begin there. I'm sure admissions will be very annoyed for me saying it that explicitly, but it's the truth, and I don't want to hide that truth.
But the thing is, you can go into something that you actually will want to learn, because often people who are doing something for the sake of doing it, they drop out. I know a lot of people, because you have to have that. The end goal isn't always that. You have to have some form of purpose during it. I know lots of people, because I did law, lots of people do it because their parents want them to be a lawyer, and they struggle because of the fact that they aren't genuinely interested. They're doing it for the end goal of qualifying. And I can see that on the course I'm on currently, which is that it's the legal practice course, and so if you qualify for that, it's all about qualification and not about learning as such, and actually applying that mindset, which I'm going to keep doing going forward. And actually, thank you, Tim, for reminding me. That will definitely help me, because I'm here to learn knowledge, not just to get a piece of paper, because what's that piece of paper worth if I've not learnt the knowledge?
And legal is a perfect example, because the jurisdiction, the law that applies to the country constantly changes. So if you don't actually learn about the law of the country all the time, you're doing it wrong. You're not going to learn everything during your degree. You have to go from case to case and understand what the context is. That's what you're being taught at university. And it's not just law where that applies, it's every single degree, whether you're trained to be a police officer or a nurse or a librarian or whatever it is. You are learning the skills to succeed in your role.
That's exactly what I was
99% of the roles, graduate roles, require you to understand how you develop and to keep developing.
So for me, I agree with that totally. It's less about the knowledge that you learn in your degree, more about the skills that you learn. And that's one of the reasons why you do research at university, I think, is because you do research to help you be able to learn that new knowledge. Because obviously knowledge is progressing, it keeps changing. So forget about when you're looking at feedback, the knowledge, especially if it's for a topic area that you're never going to cover again. Focus on the skills of that topic area. And if they say, well, you haven't, obviously you aren't showing the knowledge, that's because you aren't showing the skill of research to find it, and also the ability to reproduce it when it matters, rather than the knowledge. So yeah, I would definitely recommend focusing on the skills rather than the pure knowledge. Although saying that knowledge is still important, but the purpose of learning it is more so. So I think that is all the questions. We've got one more written down, which is, what should a student do if they have no negative feedback? So if they only have positive feedback, what do you think they do? I know what I do, Tim, but what do you think they should do? And I'll say what I do afterwards.
I think it comes down again to thinking black and white, thinking negative, positive. If you don't have negative feedback, that probably means that you've done a really good piece of work. So you've got to take that on board. That's feedback in itself. And you've got to understand that there's a degree, there's a scale, if you like, of feedback. So even if someone tells you you've done excellent desk research to get to this answer, that gives you an understanding of that you did something right, and you need to take that away with you as well and move forward and understand that that's probably something that you're doing really well, so you can build on that going forward as well.
I'm just thinking about what I would do, Tim, which is if some people have given me positive feedback in the past that isn't entirely like as good as it can be. So I might have got, let's say 75, and I've had no negative feedback. So in my head, I'm like, well, why haven't I got 100 then? But actually, if you look at the marking criteria, there's often the wording that's used. So they might have said great research, But why haven't they said excellent research? So look back at your work and think, okay, why is this only great? What can I do to make it excellent? Because that's still an area to improve.
Yeah, there's also, and I think I can say this because I'm not currently an acting academic as such, but there's also something that students need to understand that's to do with the distribution of grades and marks as a bigger group, if you like. And I forgot what the name of the law is now. There's a sort of unwritten rule about it. It's named after someone. Um, and it's basically that lecturers will never give from nil to 30 and from 70 to nil without any extra thought, if you like. So lecturers are automatically going to the median with their grading. I'm not explaining that appropriately, but I'm going to give you another example. It's something I'm really proud of, and at the same time, I keep being teased about it by my friends that I did my master's with. But we did a piece of group work at university with 3 people, and we actually scored 100 on that, which was amazing. In fact, it was so amazing that the professor who gave us the 100 had to go to the school committee program, or whatever it was called, academic board, and say, look, I want to give them 100, but I don't know if I can, because it was the first time it had ever happened at that particular school and faculty. And that just shows that it is really difficult for lecturers to give really high grades as well. So do bear that in mind as well. If your feedback is saying you've done a really good job, but you only got a 78 or whatever, don't be too upset about that. It's just because of that deviation. I will find out the term of that law at some point.
I get that as well, and I always aim for like an 80 rather than an 100, because often for me, to get 100 you have to put so much effort in that you end up getting a 30 in another one, because the effort between 80 and 100, if you could ever get 100, must be a huge gap. So I always aim to try and balance all my assessments out at around about an 80 rather than a standard of 100 on one and 50 on another. But yeah, I think what I want to do now is we're going to show some of our feedback. So first I'm going to show some feedback that I received and how I then use that feedback going forward as an example. So on screen now, and hopefully you can see. Tim, can you confirm when it comes on screen that people can see my screen?
You have to wait 10 seconds then.
Yeah, 10-second delay because of the rain.
Yeah, it's there. It's
cool.
there.
Is it clear?
That's probably better, yeah. If people are looking on their phone or something.
Okay, I'll zoom in a bit more.
Small, but...
Okay, so on screen now, I have my feedback from my year 1 and year 2 for an assignment, for 2 different assignments, but they were very similar. Both were essays, and both had the same lecturer. And after my first year, I thought I struggled with this lecturer because of the fact that they gave me a 55% in this, and I thought, well, obviously I can't write to how they want me to, so I looked at the feedback that they gave me, and there's 2 things that I've highlighted so far. So first of all, they started with, you do write clearly, and then they continued with, however, you do need to make sure that you're bringing those issues back to the subject matter of the question in a clear and consistent way. So basically, they want me to improve my application, so my ability to make arguments, but actually make them clear and make it relevant to the question. So make it clear why I'm answering things and how I'm making things relevant. And the first thing they said here is, you do write clearly. And so I looked at both these things. I looked at other things here as well, but those 2 would relate to the feedback on the next one. And I looked at the second one, and I thought, okay, I need to find ways of applying what I'm doing better. So I started thinking about how I could do that, and I implemented various ways to do that. Such as practicing writing, trying different ways in my tutorials and so on, and using the mock assessments that I was given. And the second thing, you do write clearly. Often that was probably the main piece of positive feedback in this 55% mark that I got. You do write clearly. Well, you do write clearly. That sounds good, but can it be better? So I tried to think, okay, how could I write more clearly or in a better way to get better feedback than that? So just because it was good feedback didn't mean that I didn't try to make it great feedback. So it's still something to improve upon. So this is the second year. I got the same lecturer gave me a mark of 75%. And they've said here, As you know, I've stressed the importance of applying the law to the facts in such a way that that evidence is your understanding. You've certainly achieved this, and that's because I literally looked at what she said in the first year and analysed it and went about trying to change the way that I act to make sure I hit that. And it was very rewarding seeing that. And when I got this mark, actually didn't think I'd done that well. I thought I'd failed it, like Tim said earlier, because that's the type of person that I am. I don't expect to. I always think this is the one that I failed on. But yeah, so that action of me going about and trying to find ways of improving led from one assignment to the next, of having gone from you don't apply things to you apply things really well. And then the second thing she wrote here is you communicate your ideas extremely clearly and have a fluent style of writing. Whereas in the first one she says you write clearly. So just because I've improved that, actually I improved it massively, and that's another reason why my grade raised. So just because you've got a good piece of feedback doesn't mean it can be great, and just because you've got a negative piece of feedback doesn't mean you can improve on it for the future. So that's what I wanted to show there. So Tim, you were back on screen now. So yeah, what do you think about that? Do you think that's solid advice?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting because there's a style of writing is a very interesting point to pick up on. In particular, if you are like in a legal profession, you will need to write a lot, so it's really important. I think sometimes writing is a bit overrated as well. I'm not always sure that you should judge a student on their ability to write nice, fluent, prosaically, if you like. On the other hand, as a marker, it makes your life a lot easier when something's written well. So I think that's a very relevant point. But with both of those examples, Alex, I was looking for the detail. Did you actually get further detail on the
in the paper?
Right, okay.
In the paper, she highlighted where I'd done various bits, which I looked at as well. So don't just look at the comments. Look at in the paper where they've said things. If they do annotate it, the issue was I couldn't have two turn-in windows open at once. So for some reason, so I couldn't show both of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to highlight. Sorry. I was being interrupted. I'm looking on my watch for the message I just got because I asked my wonderful wife what that rule is called, and she's not giving me a clear answer. So that was the help. I
was about to put the technical difficulty screen on Tim because I thought you'd frozen. You just stopped.
No need for that, Alex. I just want to talk a bit about what it's like to be marking. I think that's really relevant insight when it comes to giving feedback in general. Alex will know, and if you see this live stream quite regularly, you will know as well. Naomi knows that I'm quite direct with my feedback. It's quite a Dutch trait, I suppose. So I just say as it is. If I like something, I like. If I don't like, I say, well, you know what? Let's have a look at that. But when it came to working as a module examiner and marking a university module, actually I've done several, but I'm thinking about one in particular that was a year 3 undergrad module at Loughborough University. One of the things I actually understood and learned from that myself was that students don't necessarily understand what a lecturer does to get that marking turned around. So one of the things that I will raise straight away is that students always expect feedback within 2 weeks and it to be really rich and detailed because you as a student only see your lecturer as giving that module that you're on and you're not aware of the other things they are doing in the context of their job. So don't always put pressure on your lecturer to give really rich, detailed feedback because it's not always possible in the turnaround time we get, but that they get. The other thing I would say is that if you are marking, let's say for that module, I think I had about 50 students. I'm marking 50 pieces of coursework at about 3,000 words. Trust me, after about 25 in 3 days, you don't really see small, grainy detail anymore. And I think that's also relevant to know, right? So when I mark, and I know that there are colleagues that do this very differently, but when I used to do marking work, I would look at the whole lot of work that I got, all the pieces of work that I had to mark, and I would start to sift through to see what was better and what was worse. and build up an opinion based on the work that I had in front of me, and that would decide what sort of marks I would give to students. So even though we had a very clear marking grid and a very clear marking scheme, even at that point, you have to keep in mind that your lecturer, and that was the case for me, that was the first module I was doing with those students. So I didn't actually know the students that well. I didn't know what to expect from them. Not only that, it was anonymous marking, which we have, thankfully, in my opinion, at the University of Derby as well now. So I can't match the marking to the students. So A, I didn't know what to expect of that group of students. And B, marking in itself is an activity that doesn't always make you happy. I think is the best way to put it. So even though it is really important and you do take it seriously, I took it seriously then, as a student you need to be aware of that as well. So I know it's always difficult to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's marking your work, and we do get paid for it, and absolutely we should be doing a good job on it. Do have a bit of sympathy for that particular aspect as well. Then I want to highlight two different cases. One is that same module at Loughborough, where I had a group of students that really excelled compared to the rest of the students, and they got really good grades. They got between 85 and 95 on their coursework. And the feedback I gave them was, you've done really well. This is a really good piece of work. You should consider how you are actually going to apply this to your career, because they were third-year students. It was second semester module. And I want to trigger them to start thinking about, you've done a great job on this coursework. Now, how am I going to put that in practice? And that actually landed completely wrong with one particular person who came back to me and said, I don't understand why this is relevant, because you've just marked my coursework. Why do I have to then think about how this will impact me in my career? And this is what we addressed earlier. In my opinion, you should always learn from feedback. Whether it's positive or negative is irrelevant. There's always something that you can take away and take forward. So we had a really good discussion about that. One of the other examples I wanted to utilize is at Chesterfield, we used to help students with supporting their work. And at one point, I actually read the work, and we used to read, like, we don't do that anymore, so don't ask about this, but we used to read like a page of someone's work, and I got this student's work and I read it. And this was a second year student, I think. And the work was of a quality that, in my opinion, you could write a PhD. And it was so good. It was so well argumented. It was so well resourced. It was so well put together as an argument that I gave that student feedback. You don't need to worry about a thing, because it's so good. You should consider doing a PhD, or at the minimum doing a master's, because your writing is so on point. It's important to know that this was a student who was already a bit older. I think she was in her 30s, middle 30s. And she was the first in the generation to go to university. And me saying that to her came as a complete shock, because she thought she was a rubbish student. No. If you get it, if you really get it, do it, get on with it and get it sorted. And she took that bit of feedback, and she later, of course, talked to a marking lecturer as well, and really utilized that. She became so much more confident in her personality and the way that she interacted with people around her. She became so much more confident in her professional being that she actually ended up not just with a first, but I believe she ended up with an average mark throughout year 2 and 3 that was over 90, which is unheard of. So she just really took that positive feedback and used it to boost her confidence. And that's something I don't see students do enough, unfortunately. If you get that boost, if you get that confidence boost, and you go, I've done a really good job on this, take it forward, move on with that. That's so much more fruitful and so much more effective and productive than sitting there moping that you got a 71 where you felt you were going to get an 80, or you're going to sit there moping that you got a 60 and you were hoping for a 70. Whatever it is, don't mope. Use that feedback positively. Use it as a force of power to power progress. That's basically where I think a lot of students go wrong.
So just to summarise that, and to summarise this entire section, there's two things that you should really do. If you get positive feedback, use that to improve your confidence, but still do, if you can improve that area, still do try and improve it. But if you get negative feedback, use it as an opportunity to change and get better for the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get no feedback, find ways of getting feedback.
Yeah. Can I highlight one more anecdote, Alex?
One more anecdote, Tim, and then we'll move on to the next section.
I wasn't sure if I was going to share this, but I am actually going to share this. In that module that I did at Loughborough, some of the feedback I gave was harsh, as in really harsh, because I quickly realized there was 3 students. They had clearly copied each other's work. They had clearly been sitting together, and their narrative was very similar. Their arguments were very similar. The source were very similar. And I slated them because they hadn't done a good enough job on the assignment. All 3 of them basically cocked the assignment up. But, is that's swears, yeah, territory, I think, I'm not sure. But they really made a mess of it. And I slated them in the feedback. And I said, look, I want you to come to me individually and talk to me about what's gone on, because I need to identify, A, whether you've actually plagiarized, or B, whether you were just really naive and didn't understand what you were doing, or C, whatever, what's going on here, basically, is what I put in the feedback. They came to me one by one, and I set them all down, and I worked out that they hadn't actually plagiarized. They'd just been working together. Very shady area, but I didn't have enough proof to say that they were plagiarizing. But none of them had actually taken on board what I had said to them, and all of them had just done the coursework because they wanted to get it done. And they didn't actually care about the module. They didn't care about me or about the experience I brought to the module. They didn't want to learn. And that speaks true, right? When you're actually marking work, you can see the people that have done it last minute, that have done low effort, that have, you can see that immediately when you're marking. And if you are going into a piece of coursework with that approach, and when you get really negative feedback, you probably deserved it. Don't moan about it then. You know that you did a rubbish job. Accept it. Move on. Just do better next time and understand that you've wasted my time and I'm not happy about that. And that's it. Is that harsh? I think that might be slightly harsh, but it's how I felt about it.
Yeah. I know I've had some very harsh feedback from some lecturers in the past. I know I say that, they gave me a 60, but I felt like they'd been very harsh to me.
Let me say that they didn't get a 60, they got close to a 20.
Yeah, but I felt like had a lot of harsh feedback, and I was expecting to do way better than a 60 on this anyways, and a 60. But I did it last minute. That was the assignment I did last minute. It was a referencing one. Actually, that lecture, in my opinion, is one of the best lectures I ever had. I actually chose to do her elective module. And I nominated for Lecturer of the Year, which she actually won, I think.
I think that's slightly besides, though, because you still tried, right? At least you put effort in.
I put less effort in there, in that one. And that was one. I think that was because of how busy I was, is the reason I had less effort.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, actually, because I found a weird correlation when I was doing assignments, between the assignments that I did well on and the subjects that I liked. So the less I liked a subject, the better I did it, because I struggled. I'd put more effort into learning it, whereas the subject I'd already studied before, because I did A-level law, so I'd studied criminal law, I'd studied that module which I showed on screen that I got 55 on. I did worse on them because I put less of a focus on learning them at university level.
Yeah.
Whereas European Union law, I hated it. I really struggled. No negativity to the lecturer. Great lecturer. Very boring. Couldn't see why it was relevant. And I struggled. But I did better because I put effort in.
You grew up with bloody Brexit, didn't you?
Huh?
You grew up with bloody Brexit, didn't you?
Well, we were studying it after Brexit started. But I struggled to get it. But because I struggled, I put more effort into it. And therefore I did better. And
I think that the point I think people need to take away is that lecturers, markers know whether you've put effort in or not. It's obvious. It really shines through. And if you've not put effort in, don't expect miracles, because if you've not put the effort in, why would I give you a really good grade? So it's a give and take there.
Speaking about the effort that you put in, often it can be because, like I said, because of my organisation. So as well as your lecturer giving you feedback about that, they don't always know the true picture. So something that you can do with any assignment is to give yourself the feedback. So look at your practices, look what happened, look when you submitted it, look how you felt about it, and reflect on that and think about how you can do better for next time. Because, like I say, your
contextualize.
The lecturer doesn't have the full picture. They can guess that you haven't put much effort in, but there might be reasons for that. So like I said, the one that I got slated on, I say slated 60, but I had such a busy week because I've been terrible with my time management. I had so many opportunities going on at the same time that I just couldn't spend time on it, and I messed up.
Yeah.
So I reflected on that, I learned from that. The lecturer's feedback didn't say anything about that, but I knew that was the reason why I got the low grade, really. So
Yeah, and there's also something there. I don't know what it's like in English schools, but I always remember quite distinctly in secondary school, when I went to secondary school, people that tried really hard were always picked on.
I was.
Yeah, and actually you don't always need to try hard. There's a balance there. But at the same time, you are in charge of your studies, and you need to know where to focus your attention and where not to focus your attention. And working with Alex, I know Alex quite well now. Alex understands that and knows where he should be putting his attention. And that's a skill that you learn over time as well. And I think that's one of those sort of transferable skills that you pick up at university as well. That's really valuable. So understanding when you have to do something and understanding when you don't have to do something is really important as well.
Yeah, it's something definitely to reflect on. I know for a fact that in my third year I was really, really busy, and I had a few assignments. One assignment I spent for the same lecture. I had two assignments. One was a presentation, one was a report. I spent weeks on the report. So much time I spent on it because of how big it was. It was worth 60% of the module. He also had a presentation with 40%. But because of the fact that I knew how much research you need to do for a report versus a presentation, I spent a lot less time on it because of how much I realised I needed to do well. And I got a good grade on the presentation, but it gave me the time to get a great grade on the report because I knew I'd struggle with that more. So I felt really guilty doing that, but actually that's a time balancing thing, and if it had gone wrong I would have reflected on that, and luckily it sort of works. But it's all about trying to work out how long things will take you to do well and putting the right amount of effort in, because I think university is ultimately not about how intelligent you are, but the effort that you put into using your intelligence. So if you don't do the research, no matter how brainy you are, you're not going to know anything.
And actually I had a really interesting discussion with someone else in one of my in my other teams. Intelligence is such a subjective thing. Yeah, what does it mean? Oh, I'm intelligent. If you know a lot of facts about Formula One, that's bloody wonderful, but it's not going to get you a job as an engineer. So intelligence can be measured in your output, I think, and that's really important to understand. So don't get hung up on, I'm smart, I'm not smart. And again, that's something that I see a lot of students do. They go, I'm not clever enough. Who are you to decide whether you're clever enough? That's the job of the lecturer. Just put in your effort and get it done, and then someone will decide whether you're clever enough.
Yeah.
And genuinely, I have never worked with anybody at the University of Derby that wasn't clever enough to get their degree done. I have worked with people that really struggled believing and having confidence in getting the work done, but that's a completely different picture, right? So you are clever enough, right? You can do it. You just need to have that belief and that confidence that you can do it.
And once you get that confidence, you can look at the areas that you struggle in and you can apply that and go, okay, I can't do this skill yet, but it doesn't mean I can't do it. And there's an episode of the podcast that I've written about growth mindset, which is all about that, and learning and targeting your weaknesses and getting better.
Yeah, and it's to do also with that word, that I use it a lot, academic resilience,
Yes.
Building up academic resilience, becoming better at the academic process and developing yourself in that process is so important. And feedback is crucial to that whole big picture of, becoming a better you because of university.
So just to summarise that, do give yourself feedback, and if you want any advice for doing that, we have got a number of videos on the channel about reflection, including a reflective writing live stream. So we haven't gone into that in too much depth. We just discussed about why we think it's important to give yourself feedback as well as a lecturer, but we've already covered that quite a lot.
And there's that might be used for people as well, our skills assessment tool, which is available on the skills guide somewhere.
Critical analysis guide. Oh no, it's not. It's on the reflection guide somewhere.
Yes. I'll put the link up.
Yeah. Do you want to put a link in the chat, Tim? So
do you want to do a topic of the week, Alex?
Yes, I will do grammar topic of the week now. So something that students do often struggle with, It's got on the wrong screen. Whoops. Something that students often struggle with, in that they might not acknowledge that they do, is grammar. And so we do grammar topic for the week every week in order to try and help people cover topics and give advice for things that people might not realise that they need to develop. And one thing that I noticed that I always get confused at when I've been writing titles for YouTube videos, for example, is capital letters. And people do this with assignments as well. So I thought I could quite briefly cover when you need capital letters for various things so that you can then know with confidence. You might already think, well, I know how to use capital letters. Well, if you do, then hopefully watching this will give you the confidence that you actually do. If you think you do and then you find out you didn't, well, now you know. If you think you don't, well, great. This can be useful. So, in general, with using a capital letter, you always use a capital letter at the start of a sentence. Regardless of what that sentence is, use a capital letter at the start of it. So, for example, where I said there, at the start of a sentence. Oops, I've got the wrong example on the screen because I copied and pasted. But at the start of the sentence is a great example there, because the word at is capitalised where usually it wouldn't. So do note, though, that sometimes with small words, another general rule for capitalisation is that small words that would be in otherwise capital words. So let's say the University of Derby, that's capitalised usually. The word of, because it's a small word, wouldn't be capitalised. So words like a, the, and don't have capital letters even in capital words, except for at the start of a sentence. So usually I'd probably make at a small word, but because it's at the start of a sentence, I will use it there. So other things you need to capitalise, well, people. So the name of a person. So my name is Alexander Wood. So in a sentence, if I was writing about me, I would say Alexander Wood in capitals. If I had my middle name in there, that would be capitalised too. Additionally, a person's title will be capitalised. So I'm here today with Dr. Tim Zelstra, and it says, and so I would capitalise the word doctor, Dr, to help with that, as capitalisations. Additionally, people's roles will be capitalised, so job titles. So when you have a job title and that is yours and you're referring to your job title, so for example, I'm the skills co-creator, that will be capitalised. Whereas if you're talking about a job role, that won't be. So there's a difference between someone who is a cleaner at the university or that person is the cleaner for this area. That will be capitalised, whereas the other wouldn't. So I'll give you an example on screen. So Professor Chris Whitty is a chief medical officer. That's because there's quite a few of them across the country and across the world. But he is the chief medical officer for England. So you see in the second one, the capitalised, each word is capitalised, whereas in the first one they aren't, because there's a difference between a and the. And that is a similar thing that comes up throughout these examples. Additionally, places of study is another time when you need capital letters. So, for example, the name of a university or school, so University of Derby. Do note, though, that the word of is lowercase because it's one of those smaller words. Departments within a university or within education and businesses and organisations, they're also capitalised. So, the law school is capitalised here. Note that the, even though it's a small word, is capitalised because it's at the start of a sentence. Course titles, again, they are capitalised. So, accounting and finance. And is a small word, so it's not capitalised, but accounting and finance are. But where you talk about studying accounting, or where you wouldn't, if you were talking about just the word accounting in general, it wouldn't be. But if you're talking about a course that they are studying, it's capitalised. Qualifications are something else that needs to be capitalised. So A-levels, that would be capitalised because it's an exam. And Bachelors of Science, for example, or Bachelors of Arts, the bachelor and the science, or the bachelors and the art, they would be capitalised, whereas the of would not. So, with places, you'll need capital letters when you're referring to a building or a landmark. So, for example, if you're saying, I am travelling to Britannia Mill to use the library, you would capitalise Britannia and Mill because that's a place. If you were saying, I'm travelling to the Britannia Mill Library, the word library would be capitalised because that's the place that you're going to. But if you're saying that you're going there to use the library, that's a bit of a difference. The same happens with a geographical feature. So, again, something else that you capitalise. So in my example, I've used the river Derwent, which is in Derby, and the is capitalised purely because it's at the start of the sentence. So any geographical feature like a mountain or a river, that would also be capitalised. Same goes for a street or a district. So at the bottom I've got an example of a street. The name of the street would be capitalised. So Agod Street, which is where 158 Square is, that would be capitalised. Same with Derby because it's a place. And on screen I've put that there is student accommodation in the Cathedral Quarter. So that is a district. Usually you wouldn't capitalise the word Cathedral Quarter, but because it's a district, you do. So for example, when I know we're building a university quarter near where 158 Square is, the word university there would be capitalised because it's part of a district. The same goes for places. So I just showed on the other slide that in the address the word Derby was capitalised. But in this example, here are different places, counties and countries and so on. They are capitalised. So Derby, Derbyshire, England, United Kingdom, they will need capital letters. Additionally, dates and months, they require capitals as well. So if you're talking about Saturday or Monday or Tuesday, capital letters needed. Same with the month, August, capital A. However, if you're talking about the date in a month, so the 15th of August, that wouldn't be capitalised. The word 15th wouldn't. Additionally, seasons aren't capitalised either. So the winter, autumn, summer and spring, they would all be lowercase rather than capitalised. Something which is quite relevant to your work are books. So if you're citing a book in your text, books do need to be capitalised. So I've got an example on screen here. My favourite book series is The Lord of the Rings. It's not actually, but it's one which exemplified O and the, of and the being smaller. Again, that is something which showcases how those, because they're small words, aren't capitalised, whereas Lord and Rings are. Journal articles and newspapers, they will need to be, the names of them will need to be capitalised as well, because they are things. So capitalise those. So that if you're ever using a journal article or naming one in your book, in your reference list, or if you're naming it in your text, make sure to capitalise it. The same with the newspaper. And the is capitalised here either because it's part of the name or because it's the first letter, the first word in the sentence. Films and TV shows also need to be capitalised. So if you're talking about a film or a TV show, make sure to capitalise that. And the same goes for articles and academic papers. Again, note that small words here aren't capitalised. Here we've got the author's name, Hopkins, which is capitalised here because it's the name, but the actual paper itself does need to be capitalised. It's in the name of it. Organisations and government. So if you're talking about an organisation, a company or a business, they need to be capitalised. So for example, I put Community Chesterfield there. With government, places like Parliament needs to be capitalised because it's government. And the same with any government body. Political parties as well, like the Conservative Party or the Labour Party, they need to be capitalised. When quoting a law, laws need to be capitalised as well. So for example, the Working Time Regulations, the Health and Safety at Work Act, and same with treaties as well. Now we've got some miscellaneous ones. So any planets, the capitalisations are needed. If you're talking about a nationality or a language, they also need to be capitalised. Historical periods, so if you're talking about the Industrial Revolution or talking about any other historical period, you need to capitalise that because it's a specifically named thing. And finally, abbreviations need to be capitalised. So the general rule is basically anything that is named needs to be capitalised if it's named of something or based on something particular. If you're talking about a version of it or a university rather than the university, don't capitalise it. And if any small words in them don't need to be capitalised. So those are the key findings. I've put on screen this link here because this is where I got my information from for this, and it's a book that actually you can use from Biblium, which is the book is called, if I just go to the cover, Improve Your Grammar, the Essential Guide to Accurate Writing. So I'm going to include a link to this in the description of the video, but this book is a book that University of Derby students currently have access to through Biblio, and you can find that on any of our skills guides. So if I go to academic writing on my skills guides, you can see that we have a link to Biblio here, and you can find it on there. You'll need your University of Derby credentials to get on them. If you're wondering about how to find the skills guides, here's the library website as it stands now before it gets updated, but it will be getting updated soon. So you can get to them currently by finding subject information over here, and then just click onto any of our guides. So these guides can actually be useful for reflecting on feedback, because if you identified in your work that you need to improve the ability of writing or your ability to be critical and so on, you can use these guides to help as action points for that area. Same with our workshops as well. You can use our workshops to improve upon those areas. So Tim, is there anything that you want to say at the moment? Because
yes, go to the website again, the library website.
Yep.
And then there's a new website coming. Can you see that news heading?
Yep.
Ooh, look on the new website. What does it look like?
So you've got workshops here. If you want to access our skills guides on here, you go to support and then skills guides.
Yes, we're very curious to hear from people what they think about our new website. It's still in early beta. Is it beta?
Yeah, beta probably.
Alpha, yeah, whatever it is.
I think it's in beta now.
Yeah, we want to hear from people because we are trying to improve the way that people access us and our content, and this is a really good step forward. I think it looks great personally, but yeah, you can have to play around with that and see what you think. The other thing is, I was going to mention, I bit my tongue a bit, Alex.
I know. I needed to get through it quickly, you see. I was trying to get through it fast.
One, I'm looking forward to hearing from Naomi whether she agrees with the book that you referenced, because Naomi and I had a lovely discussion about capitals at some point. And the other thing I want to mention, because Alex, you're learning German, aren't you, at the moment?
Yes, I'm currently learning German in my spare time.
So what do the Germans do with all nouns?
Tim, I'm only 95 days in so far.
No, you will know this.
What, der, die, and das? They...
No. A noun, a proper noun, any noun. The dog. Yeah.
They capitalise it.
They capitalise it. Every noun in German is capitalised. And what's really funny is, as a kid, I always thought it was really silly because I had to learn what a noun was, and I didn't like that. You know, if I forgot to capitalise the noun in my German coursework, I would get marked down on it. Then when I actually wanted to learn German, I realized how useful it is, because you don't need to learn what else to capitalize, because if it's a noun, it's capitalized. So it's actually a really good rule if you think about it. But yeah, no, thanks for that. That was really interesting, Alexander.
Good. I tried to get through it as quickly as I could because of the time.
I know. Yes, we're nearly done. Well, we
are done pretty much.
Oh,
it's just
have you got a nice animation?
Further resources. I do have a nice animation for the end, but I just thought it'd be worth highlighting some of our resources, which will be, which I will add to the description after the live stream's over. So we've got our workshops calendar here. You can access this to our website either through the new website on workshops here, or if you go to the old website. Let's go to the old website, and you scroll down to academic and research skills. You can find our workshops calendar here.
We really need sound effects, don't we? We need something so when you go, oops, you can press a button and it plays, whoopsie.
So we've got next week's live stream on here, which is all about organising and planning for the next semester. Sorry.
Are you being on topic again? You are.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying, so I was focusing. So next week's live stream builds on from this one in the sense that we're talking about organising and planning in terms of how you can organise and plan for your next semester, giving some advice on those topics. But we have lots of...
I just want to, whilst you're here, Alex, I wanted to raise, we're thinking about changing the timing of the live stream. So if you have any thoughts on that, in our experience, where the replay is viewed really well, but the actual live stream's not attended that well. So what we're thinking of doing is changing the timing up a bit to see if we can get more people in the live session. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments or whatever it is. Let us know what you think. It's likely it will change, also due to some other circumstances. But yeah, let us know what times you would prefer. That would be really, really useful. Are we getting back on camera, Alex, or are you just going to scroll?
Oh, sorry. I was just showcasing resources. Like they've got the something else I was going to raise before going back to person was the Derby Uni Library YouTube channel, and this has lots of resources that can help you with reflection. So we've got the 3 stages of reflection video here, which is from Naomi's reflective writing workshop, which can help you with creating your own feedback. But we've also got lots of other pieces of videos, that can help you with certain things. So, for example, if you think, okay, I want to improve my critical analysis, you can just search something like that on our channel. Don't always search critical analysis because not everything might come up, but you can see we've got videos that come up here. So this video here, critical questions, comes up lower because of the fact that it's attached to the word analysis. Subtracting critical, it might come up higher.
And like and subscribe to us.
Oh yeah, do subscribe to the channel.
380. Oh no, 330. Damn, I thought we were on 380 now. We need to get to 380 by the end of this month. By the end of February.
Okay, good luck, me.
We're gonna make it. You know what I'm like.
Well, with the workshops in new semester, potentially you've got the chance. But yes, hopefully
there's Diana.
There is Diana, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've just moved us back onto the main screen now, Tim. So you're back on screen.
Yeah. And Catherine was there as well. I like watching back. It's good.
So if anyone's got any questions or anything before we end the stream, do let us know. You can add comments. But I think with the workshops in new semester, I think we're going to wrap things up now. I've just realised I've not got the screens going. But
I need to get lunch.
Me too.
I'm starving.
So I think we'll end it here unless anyone asks questions. Oh wait, I've got to wait 10 seconds before people can even start writing the questions.
Have you done the like and subscribe animation, Alex?
I can put it on again. So you've got the subscribe animation. So do make sure to subscribe if you are interested in more live streams.
Steve made it. It was really good.
It's really good. I like it a lot. He made all our graphics. Let us know what you think about the graphics as well, because we like your feedback and we appreciate the ways of changing. I just realised, I was like, wait, we've got another viewer. Why someone else started watching? And then realised it's me. It's actually me watching it on the thing. I was like, because I opened it on my computer by accident.
They all count. There it is. Yes, nice. Oh yeah, that's me 10 seconds behind, by the way. So are we going to wave and are we going to do the posh title thing as well?
So we've got a credits slide here. So here are the credits. Today's live stream was brought to you by the Library Skills team, Tim Zelstra, Naomi Bowers-Joseph, and myself worked on the scripts for this episode, and also Tim and I were in it. I say script plan. I think it's better that we've had a plan this week. I don't know what you think. If you do have any opinions, let us know. And Stephen Plant creates all the lovely graphics that we've been using and the intro countdown and so on. So thank you very much to everyone who's been involved.
I've just realised, Alex, this is really bad. I'm looking at it and I've realised I look slightly bald because of the way the headphone is squashing my hair.
That's all right, Tim.
Being old is such a pain in the neck, isn't it?
Well, I've got too much hair at the moment because of lockdown.
Yeah, because you're 22 now, 22. So, you're still young and vital. Yes. Your hair is not dropping out with stress and other sort of things.
That is true. But yeah, we're going to end the live stream now, I guess, unless you've got anything else to say. So thank you very much for watching. Remember, the key findings of this live stream are all about using the feedback that you've got positively. If you get negative feedback, use it as an opportunity. If you've got positive feedback, use it as... what is it? What is the positive feedback one? Oh yeah, use it as to build your confidence. If you've got no feedback, then just find feedback and give yourself feedback. So that's everything. Goodbye.
Bye. See you next time. Are we still on?
I'm just waiting for it to finish.